It's almost 2 years since the time when the Armenian government received $15 million preferential loan from the World Bank and through its own co-financing launched the main urban heating project. The newly established Armenian Renewable Resources and Energy Efficiency Fund had to shoulder the entire responsibility for the implementation of the project. Since the urban heating project was essentially the first prototype project, the fund initiated elaboration of approaches to the most effective implementation of the project, which had to be modified within at times rather tight timelines for the final endorsement of all parties concerned. It was not a secret to anyone that there are numerous problems outstanding in the Armenian heat supply sector, which are also conditioned by objective reasons. First of all, as a result of the devastating earthquake of 1988, along with the completely destructed multi-apartment buildings, the major part of the centralized heating system in 1/3 of the country's territory was paralyzed. Shortly after, there was a collapse of the Soviet Union, followed by the economic and energy crises that posed the entire country to shock, thereby almost completely destructing the heating system in Armenia. Although very few parts of the huge centralized heating system still managed to survive up until 2005, however, neither heating nor hot water supply was ever made available to the urban population in large. In the light of the lack of its own fuel resources, Armenia was compelled to refer to the available energy resources and use them in the most effective way, for which purpose the Armenian government has acknowledged the priority and adopted its renewable resources and energy efficiency strategy. Having envisioned the major social issues faced by the country, where the heat supply issue is considered as one of the crucial, Armenia called to the support of the international community, including the World Bank. Within the scope of its mission to support developing economies and facilitate to the reduction of the poverty level, the World Bank reacted to the call of the Armenian government and expressed its readiness for collaboration in the context of the reality that the Armenian government had so far demonstrated itself as a reliable partner while implementing various projects, including those targeted at the tackling of energy crisis.
2000 թվականի սկզբից կառավարության հետ համատեղ
Starting from early 2000, in conjunction with the Armenian government, we undertook and assisted in the elaboration of urban heating strategy, which implementation is supported by this project. I have to note that the project, with its approaches, has been quite innovative for the World Bank as well. Essentially, this was the first prototype project within the region. Of course, earlier the World Bank was engaged in the implementation of centralized heat projects, but those would not be workable for Armenia, given the extremely unequal distribution of incomes in the country. To this end, this became an interesting experience for us, to see whether such approach, decentralized heating solution, can work in countries like Armenia, and in case of success, the best practice can also be applied to other countries in the region. The project has been functional for almost a year and a half, and the assessment has already shown rather positive results. Let's recall some facts related to the project. Indeed, the project distinctly has social implications, which served as a basis for its breakdown into 3 main components. While looking at the sequence of the components, it appears not to be surprising at all that the school heating component is in the first place, because at all times the Armenians have considered the well-being of their children as a top priority. However, over 100 urban schools that comply with certain requirements and enrollment criteria will benefit from gas-based independent heating solution offered under the given component of the project. One of the interesting observations of this project was that the priority is given to address the issue firstly for the urban schools in the regions, rather than the ones in the capital city of Armenia, which would also become eligible if any finance remains after the completion of the works in the region.
With
the aim of school heating project implementation, the experts of the fund have studied 202 schools in different urban locations of Armenia, which were in need of heating, according to the preliminary data assembled from the applications received. Only 97 schools were selected from the total of 202, where we started to work. And eventually, during the post-heating system, 45 schools were furnished with heating. Cost efficiency has been the main criteria for selection, more precisely based on the volume of per student investment, which should not prevail the limit of $120. Apparently, under such scenario, both the investments appear to be economically justified and the current heating costs become efficient, especially in the face of the fact that the state financing for schools is allocated based on the number of students rather than the school's surface area. Since the major part of the school buildings constructed during the former Soviet years have typical designs and are quite big, and unfortunately nowadays such schools have very limited number of students, the fund is compelled to reject some applications. As a special consideration for such schools, the fund's board of trustees has taken a decision to allow the heating of only a part of the building under the condition that the complete thermal insulation of the given part of the building is ensured. It is important to note here that when the heating system becomes operational, it does not mean that the fund has accomplished its mission. Here we deal with something that is underlying the sustainable exploitation of the heating system. Within a year, during at least one heating system, we are monitoring, measuring the temperature in the classrooms and halls, gas and water costs, and based on the daily information we are making estimations and recommending on more cost-effective and efficient regimes, as well as advising as to how to function well in order to ensure adequate and convenient conditions and save funds. 97 urban schools outside of Yerevan as of December 2007 already had heating in place, which involves more than 54,000 students. Basically, there are no more long idle periods in winter, and much more favorable conditions are established in classrooms, with a minimum temperature being 18 degrees. This is the last year of our studies, and we must say that there are obvious improvements, both in terms of external design of the school and in increasing the educational level. Earlier, when we were in junior classes, there were wood heaters placed in classrooms. It was quite cold and the lessons were short. Today, this problem is solved already, and there is normal heating at school. It's good that the schools are at focus, which in my opinion inspires responsibility in us first of all. I mean myself and my classmates. Firstly, we must study well and make good specialists, and secondly, transmit this attitude to younger generation and our country at large. It's warm at school, which makes the attending pleasant for me. Let's note that the school heating project, directly or indirectly, also solves healthcare problems, which is considered, without any exaggeration, as crucial for our country and our future generations, in the face of numerous aspects. One of the most painful issues of the recent years in the education system has been the forced idleness during winter season. No doubt that this given issue should be addressed in terms of ensuring quality education. The overview of the school component element indicates that as a result of heating, the educational institutions restore the possibility to revitalize the hobby groups they used to operate earlier and make the out-of-class activities more active, which is considered even more important in the case of small cities, where the opportunities for proper and comprehensive education for young generation are indeed limited. The second component of the project is not less important than the first one and targets at the settlement of heating issue for the poor. Before the start of the urban heating project, a research was conducted by the fund, which identified that the given layer of society is the most vulnerable in terms of security, because of the fuel used for self-made heaters and other heating facilities. Furthermore, the risk group does not only involve the needy households, but also those that are residing in a multi-apartment building. This observation became a basis for the elaboration of a separate component which could address the issue related to such families. Subsequently, it was decided to provide capital grants for organizing heating of the poor households, for which purpose $3 million were allocated at the initial stage, which would be channeled to connecting the apartments of the poor to the functional heat system if applicable. Otherwise, individual solution for gasification and heating installment was going to be offered to them. Within the scope of this component, the Armenian government has decided to make 20% co-financing on top of the set $3 million. As far as the research has revealed that the available financing will not be sufficient to assist a lot of households in need, the fund applied to one of the World Bank's funds, namely Global Partnership on Output-Based Aid, which extended a grant in the total of $3 million. The project was launched since mid-2006, with the main target to assist 17,000 poor households. Here also, the case-specific instruments and procedures were clearly defined, which were communicated to the public through mass media as well as the fund's own staff during site visits. In this context, the local municipalities have willingly undertaken a vital role in terms of logistically supporting both the fund and the needy. As a main tool for assistance, the fund has acknowledged to use the criteria and available data under Poverty Family Benefit System, endorsed by the Government of Armenia, and deemed acceptable for the World Bank and other donor institutions for ideally corresponding to the established requirements. They have contacted us and told that they would provide us with a heater because we are needy. I was astonished and even asked them what I was supposed to do with this heater. However, they have registered me, requested for some documents which I have fully provided, and after I have paid 70,500 Armenian drams, they have come to my apartment, done some measurements, design works, and once the gas pipeline was fixed, the heater was brought in and installed. If not this project, we would never afford such a heater. Now the heater is slightly burning during the whole day and it's very warm inside. We are very grateful to those who have initiated and are implementing this project. I have submitted the necessary documents. After some time, I have been informed of my eligibility. I paid 70,500 Armenian drams for the heater. Some people came, fixed the gas pipeline and installed the heater. Everything was done nicely and with care. I am indeed very grateful to the fund, especially the director of the fund, who has been so pleasant to me when I turned to her a number of times. Just imagine, without this project we would not be able to solve the heating issue and will have to survive the winter season half frozen. Everything was done properly, both the design and the fixing. What was even more pleasant, that they did it with open heart and without any hidden interest. If the project didn't support, the needy and the unemployed people would never have gas and heater. Thank you. The overall